take it away.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thanks for dropping in, everyone, to the webinar. It's my pleasure today to introduce you to Ventsim4, which is the successor to the previous Ventsim version, known as Ventsim3, of course. Now, Ventsim3 was introduced in 2012, so this Ventsim4 has been 3 years in the making, but we've also added a lot of features to Ventsim3 as it's developed as well. So we tend to do more successive upgrades to Ventsim than one big upgrade, but that said, Ventsim4 does have a lot of nice improvements. And what I'd like to do today is show you some of the main improvements and perhaps inspire you to look at different ways to use Ventsim. Ventsim4 has actually got probably about 100 separate improvements built into it, so I'll only cover the main ones today. And the main ones today basically are, I guess, things that I find are, I guess, most important to people, and certainly some of our more common user requests. So we'll just start through these one by one. We have done a fair bit of work on the simulation engine for Ventsim4, so the engine is quite a bit faster, particularly when it comes to thermodynamic and gas simulation. We found Ventsim3 was a bit sluggish, particularly in larger models. So this new version is certainly a lot faster when it comes to simulating large models, and it's also a little bit more accurate as well. Now we'll go through each of these points in a bit more detail shortly. We've also improved, I guess, what was one of the most frustrating features for me in version 3 and certainly for many others, and that's how we can get fans into Ventsim and use them as quickly and efficiently as possible. So Ventsim4's got a much improved fan importer and a digitizer also to save time, so we'll go through and show you how that works. We've also got support for photographic textures, so we can put photographs or terrain models on top of 3D surfaces, and we can have a full visual photographic picture in 3 dimensions that we can use to visualize where, I guess, infrastructure is or surface features. I've used it recently myself when I was at a mine to determine, I guess, the best place for a new shaft in terms of something that wouldn't be in the way of, I guess, something obvious on the surface. So that's a nice little feature, and it looks pretty good too. We can also import, I guess, PDF sheets and plans directly into Ventsim as well, and this is useful particularly for old mines that may have scanned copies of plans. So instead of using a 3D CAD type importer, we can actually just import the scanned sheet or the PDF file, and then we can position and scale that PDF sheet in Ventsim in real coordinates and use that as a basis or an overlay to help design our models. We've also improved a very powerful feature of version 3 called staging. Staging was something that was very useful for making many different versions of models and variations of those models. Now, whether they were different options or different time frames, the idea of staging was to put everything on in the same model so you can see all the different phases of ventilation. However, it was a very difficult control to use in version 3. So version 4 has a much improved controller for staging, and it certainly makes it much easier to create many different stages of your model and to manage those stages more effectively. For those who have mine sensors, Ventsim4 also improves on what we call the live view interface, which feeds in live data into the model, and we can now do that what's called asynchronously, which means we can do it simultaneously while we're working without pausing or stopping. So that's a nice little improvement. We've also got inbuilt video recording and time-lapse recording built into Ventsim. So if you want to make a demo or a presentation or a tutorial for someone, we can now record everything we do on the screen into a video and then save and play that video back at the end of our session. So that's very good for, I guess, showing people in presentations or sending files to people on how to do things, and that certainly does make things easier when you want to record a simulation perhaps or show what you're doing. And we've also got an improved importer into Ventsim as well that supports many more versions of AutoCAD and MicroStation, and of course Datamine as well. Okay, so I'd just like to go through these points one by one fairly quickly and just give you a bit of an overview of what it's all about. The simulation, just quickly on this one, it's not too much I can tell you about because it's very technical, but basically the simulation engine is much improved. We use what's called a sequential simulation algorithm, which means instead of just randomly going through the model and simulating bits and pieces, it'll stage and step through the model much faster. and as a result we can get up to a 500% increase in simulation speed for heat and gas. It doesn't always happen that way, particularly with models that recirculate. That still requires fairly intensive calculation. But for simple models or models that have straight flow-through ventilation without recirculation, the increased speed is quite significant. And we've also put some changes into the algorithms just to improve the accuracy and stability of some of the more complex simulations. And so we too tend to get more consistent and reliable results. Okay, one nice feature that we've put in, and we've had some great feedback with this feature, is what we call the fan digitizer. On the previous versions of Ventsim, we had to put in the fan curves point by point by looking at the fan curve sheet from the manufacturer, estimating the quantity and pressure of different points along that curve, and then typing those into the grid. So the sheet we see in front of us now, it has been changed a little bit from the Ventsim version 3, but the basics is still the same. You just have to put those points in one by one. A nice feature that we've added to Ventsim 4 is the ability to group fan curves together. So rather than having lots of separate fans with different curves, we can now put a bunch of different curves or blade angles under the same fan, and then we can group all those fans under one name. So it does make the fan database much easier to read, and it also makes it easier to select specific variations of that fan that otherwise in the previous version you would have had to search through a long list of different fans. We've also included what's called a polynomial curve estimator, and this is just a way of simulating a curve with just the minimum number of points. So you can see on this fan curve we've only got 3 points that we've entered, but the polynomial curve estimator will put a nice curve through those 3 points. And in many cases you won't have to enter any more than 3 or 4 points for most fan curves to get a very good approximation of the fan curve. We've also built in what's called a fan loss calculator, which estimates the losses from a fan. So if a fan has a silencer or a cooler bolted onto it, or a complex arrangement of bends on the surface, we can simulate those bends as part of the fan structure and get the fan performing with more realistic pressures. Now, I guess the big change to the fan database is to be able to import fan curve data sheets from PDF files directly. So we can just drag and drop these PDF sheets directly into the fan database in Ventsim. You can see there's an image of a PDF sheet that's been dropped into Ventsim from Spendrup. From that PDF sheet then, we can then click on what's called the fan digitizer, and then with the mouse we can click on those fan curves, just click by click along those curves, and Ventsim will automatically put in the correct numbers for those points, the correct quantities and flows and pressures for each of those points. So that's a really neat way to do things. So you can put a whole fan with a bunch of different curves into Ventsim in a matter of 1 or 2 minutes. Before it probably would have taken 20 or 30 minutes. So that's a great improvement of speed. And these fan curve PDF sheets are also stored in the file too. So if you want to reference them in the future or look back on them to make sure they're accurate, they'll always be part of the fan file as well. So that was a very welcome to version 4. Photographic textures, that's a feature where we can drop in photographs on top of 3D surfaces in Ventsim. You can see there's a couple of examples there where we've just taken some Google Earth imagery, and then we've dropped that into the Ventsim model on top of a 3D surface. And you can see very clearly the terrain, the roads, the mountains and hills and vegetation overlaid on that 3D surface. So it's a nice way to, I guess, make your model visually more appealing, but it's also a nice way to be able to pick out features on top of the model for positioning shafts or whatever, and make it easier for people to understand what's going on with your ventilation infrastructure. Now, the way we position those in the model is that once we drop the picture onto the 3D surface, we can then rotate and stretch that picture to the exact coordinates, and there's a very easy to use feature in Ventsim that allows you to do that. We can also import scanned plans as well. So if we have PDF copies of our plans, we can drop those into Ventsim. Ventsim will place those in 3 dimensions and scale them correctly at whatever scale you want to. And then we can use those plans that we've scanned into Ventsim as a guide to drawing our own Ventsim models. So this is useful for older mines that don't perhaps have digitized AutoCAD or Datamine plans. We can actually just take those pictures or PDF files directly and then put them straight into Ventsim and use those to trace over or as a digitizing aid. And we can also drop in other sheets as well. So anything that's a PDF file, we can drop into Ventsim now. and it will store it within the file as a three-dimensional image, if you like. That's available to use as a reference in case you need to pull up some information at some time, and to be able to view that as a reference file that you can turn on and off as part of your model. Now, we talked about staging a little bit. Staging is once again where we can create multiple different versions of our models for different options or times. So as a demo here, we've got an example of a mine at the initial stages of development. So you can see that there's a Ventsim model coming down from the bottom of an old open cut. For the next stage, you can see that we've created a new shaft. For the next stage after that, we've created a further shaft, and we call that the pre-production stage. So all of these stages are part of the same model, but they're for different variations in time as part of the ventilation model goes on. And if we go to another stage again, you can see again that's another variation further on in time. All of these stages are linked together so that you can make a decision that if you change one airway on one stage, you can decide whether you want that same airway to automatically change on your other stages, or you can decide whether you just want to make a unique change only for that stage. So staging is a very powerful tool. As I mentioned before, it was quite a difficult tool to use in version 3 because you had to individually keep track of every airway and what stage that they belong to. With Ventsim version 4, however, we've got a new feature called Stage Lock. And what Stage Lock basically does is it allows you to quickly create a shared copy of your stage. A shared copy means that the airways are shared with another stage. So if you change the airway on one stage, you will automatically change the other stage. However, there may be some airways on that new stage you don't want to share. So perhaps you've added or changed or moved some airways around. As a result, this new feature allows you to lock that stage in place. It allows you then to make those changes, and then it allows you to unlock that stage and automatically have those changes only appear on the new stage. So rather than individually trying to keep track of every airway, basically it just records what things you've done differently while you've had that lock on, and when you unlock it, those changes will now be specifically part of that new stage. So that does make staging a lot easier to use, and it certainly makes it a powerful tool for demonstrating the many options or time frames that your ventilation model will probably have to go through at your mine. I mentioned Live View as well. Live View is the feature that feeds in live sensor data. So if you have sensors underground, you can feed those sensors directly into Ventsim through the Live View interface. The Live View interface will update those numbers. You can see those blue boxes on the screen show live information, and that live information is updated frequently, however many times you want, 5 seconds or 1 minute or whatever the case may be. The nice thing about Live View, and the very powerful thing about Live View, however, is that we can use that live information to actually control our model. So if we want to see the distribution of gas through the entire model, we can use that live information to feed that gas into our model and then have it spread through our model in real time. So basically over time we can see that the gas will spread through our model from that sensor information, and we can get a constant update, I guess, of what all the conditions in the mine might be based on the limited number of sensors that you might have in your mine. So that's just an example of a mine setup, and it shows the gas distribution throughout the entire mine from those half a dozen or so sensors that are placed through the mine. So Live View certainly is a very powerful tool for doing that, and in version 4 we've made it even more powerful because now it can do it in the background, as I said, asynchronously, and you can just basically leave it running and watch those colours and gases spread through the mine based on that Live View real data information. Okay, so that's just a summary, I guess, of some of the major features. As I said, there's probably about 100 different changes all up. Those changes I've just presented to you were ones that are very significant, but they're also changes that I suppose will make your work easier and faster, and certainly there is some nice visual changes there as well. You can see the picture on the last screen there is a picture of a coal mine in China. People do lots of crazy stuff in Ventsim, including putting in lots of CAD pictures to make it visually more appealing. But yeah, I guess it's always cool for me to look at what people are up to and how they're using Ventsim in different ways, and that certainly inspires us to, I guess, change and add features for the future, and obviously respond to any questions or improvements that you guys might have. So what I'll do now, I'll just switch it back to the chairman for questions, and I'd love to hear any questions you have or explain more information, and I'll let you control the meeting at the moment, Mick. So I'll just go back to the main screen again and hand it over for questions. Okay, so can you still hear us, Mick? Okay, so I'm just going to basically wait for some questions to come through. I'm quite happy to answer any questions or show some new features. And I'll just wait for Mick Rogers to respond to those.
You must have done a great job, Craig. If anyone has any questions, please just type them into the chat box and I'll pass them on to Craig. So you've either done such a good job, Craig, that everybody completely understands everything about Ventsim4, or you've bamboozled them with your great presentation.
You could be right. That's a possibility. Here we go. We have a first question.
Yeah.
Murray says, is it a free upgrade for an existing user? Yes, as long as your maintenance is up to date. Ventsim Visual 4 is a free upgrade for current users of Ventsim.
Okay, now they're coming thick and fast.
Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just read these questions out one by one.
Yeah.
Can you import block models into Ventsim4? If you can export the block model to a DXF file or a graphics file, you can import those block models into Ventsim as a visual surface, but you can't actually use them as a block model as such. So you can visually put those models into the program and look at ore bodies and things like that, but you may not be able to actually analyze that block model as a block model. So for an example, I did a recent job with a mine that had a fairly extensive ore body and block model that they wanted to include in Ventsim, and as a result we imported a lot of the ore body graphics into Ventsim to be able to understand where the ventilation system would interact with the mine voids, and as a result we got a very good visual picture of the entire mine. I'll just quickly switch over that view now and just show you what it looks like. So I'll just quickly share the screen if I can, and I'll just make sure we don't overload too much information on here. Okay, so if I just share that second screen, you can probably see here there's an example of, I guess, a mine where we've actually imported the ore body, the outlines, as well as the various colours which represent different time frames that the ore body would mine as well. So these are some of the sort of different graphics objects you can import into Ventsim, and as long as you can get those out of your CAD software or Datamine software as a DXF file, you can put anything like that into Ventsim directly. Okay, so I'll just switch back. Okay, next question. What are the machine requirements? Ventsim can run on pretty well any version of Windows, everything from Windows XP to Windows 10. We do recommend 64-bit Windows if you can get it, because it does allow you to use much more memory. However, 32-bit Windows is also supported as well, and Ventsim Visual automatically comes in both versions. Typically, a good graphics card, it helps the graphics speed up, although you'll find that most of the most recent processors from Intel have reasonable 3D graphics built into them, so we find that Ventsim performs very well on any modern machine, and you don't need anything special as far as memory goes. 4 gigabytes is normally plenty for Ventsim, unless you want to do very large models, like 50,000 branches, for example. 4 gigabytes of memory will be plenty. Question about the cost structures of the new features. The cost structures remain the same as Ventsim version 3. We've got 3 versions of the software: Standard, Advanced and Premium. Standard is just for basic airflow and pressure simulation. Advanced is for more sophisticated thermodynamic simulation and gas simulation. And the Premium version contains things like the live view interface. It contains the fire simulation and the emergency scenario simulation feature called Ventsim4. And it also contains the VentLog database for storing ventilation survey results as well. So the 3 versions remain the same as version 3. As I said, it's a free upgrade for those who've got current maintenance with version 3. You can upgrade to version 4 at no additional cost. For those of you whose maintenance is out of date, if you wanted to update the maintenance to the current date, you'll get access to the version 4 as part of that maintenance cost. Okay,
so Craig, we did have a question of whether you can still use the flight simulator and blow up your mine.
Yeah, that's an important feature. We actually have made a small improvement to that feature. You won't find it documented anywhere, but if you get into the flight simulator, you'll see a little surprise there. So we had a bit of a competition recently at a trade show, and that created a bit of interest. So try it out if you've got version 4. We also did make some minor changes to the license as well. We've got some new licensing options for version 4. One of the licensing options is called a network license, where the site can run their own Ventsim license server and then automatically distribute licenses to any connected machines to that computer on the mine site, and that eliminates a lot of the internet issues or the transfer issues of licenses if you do forget to release them, because the network license feature will automatically activate and then release licenses whenever Ventsim is used. If the mine site wants to run their own server and they've got multiple licenses on that server could automatically hand those licenses out to whatever computer's turned on to Ventsim at the time. We've also got a new license release feature as also. If you do somehow find that your license is locked on another computer and that computer is no longer available, the new version of Ventsim4 has a license release that allows the user to automatically unlock their license. So before, users had to ask us how to do it. We've now allowed the users to do that themselves.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Craig. The questions are drying up. One more question.
Can you produce quick graphs on temperature, DPM, and velocity changes? The answer is yes, you can. And you could also do this in Ventsim3 to some extent. If you drop in what's called a monitor, which is one of the toolbar icons, into any of the airways in the mine, as the mine simulation progresses, either through a dynamic simulation or a live view simulation, it records the information flowing through that point in the mine in real time. Anytime you can click on that monitor, and it will do a full graph of any of the changes. So if the airflow or velocity have changed or the gases have changed, it'll draw a graph of those changes over the simulation period. And it can also export those graphs and data to Excel if you want to analyze them further. So that records a wide variety of different things. As I said, gases, DPMs, radon, velocities of air, flow of air, temperatures. All of those things are recorded by monitors and can be graphed at any time.
Okay, well, we might wrap it up there. Thanks everyone for your attendance, or if you're watching the video on our YouTube channel, thanks for having a look. If you do have any questions, don't hesitate to contact your local Datamine office, and if we can't answer it, we can certainly feed that back to Craig and get you a response pretty promptly.
Okay, thanks, Mick. Just one last question. The manual has been updated to version 4. Yes, it has. Sorry, mate. Wait, back to you, Mick.
No worries. Yep. Thanks for your question, Peter. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, everyone, for your attendance, and look forward to the next webinar in the near future.
Okay, thanks, everyone, for attending. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. Bye.